What was the smallest thing that made you have a crush on someone? Talk. Talk and not shutting up. I'm a very introvert person and fucking useless at small talk general conversation. So most relationships went because of that. Then I met my current wife 12 years ago and she was just talking and chatting away non-stop. I knew that's what I needed. The way she greeted me. Most of my female friends give me a quick hey or a small half hug whenever I see them or whenever we meet up to hang out. This girl was different. The day my pre-existing crush became a full-on obsession was when she came over to my place for coffee. I was waiting for her on the porch and after she parked she comes skipping up the driveway saying my name over and over again with this glowing smile on her face. Then she hugged me. She hugged me like I was the most important person in her life and didn't let go. Her hair got wet in the rain. A past coworker, she was always so put together till one day she came running inside the office lobby from the rain. She looked at me and said forgot my umbrella duh. Instantly hot. I had never really thought of her like that before. At work, a guy would call in a carry-out order every Thursday. He stood out because his name was spelled differently. I immediately pictured my life with him because of his name. Why, brain, why, edit. For those asking, his name was Ian, pronounced Owen. She had these freckles along her cheekbones and over the bridge of her nose. I always find freckles kind of cute, but the ways hers were shaped, whenever she smiled the freckles made a smiley pattern as well. I found it absolutely adorable, but never told her, because I'm fairly sure that's a weird thing to observe about someone. I don't know, it's like she lit up double when she smiled. This seemed better to describe before I started typing it. As a college student, I was in a piano practice room working on the accompaniment for a soprano aria. By surprise, the door opened, and in came the girl who would be performing the piece with me. She just caressed my shoulders, getting me to relax, as I played and started to sing the aria perfectly and so musically. That did it. We became a duo. Weirdly, the way she sneezed, like my sneezes are massive, loud, gross and filled with snot. I found it weird that her sneezes were the exact opposite. She laughed so hard she fell out of a chair. For some reason, I thought it was adorable. The reason is probably because that's adorable. I would doodle the stupidest 4-panel comics in high school to give to my younger brother when I got home because they made him laugh. They were terrible and the humor was nonsensical, violent Bobo style humor. People who / know anime know what I'm talking about. If anyone read them, they would think I was insane. I was working on one in my downtime during class when suddenly I hear a female voice behind me. "What are you drawing?" I freaked out and tried to cover it, but she insisted to see it. I was freaking out as there was no possible way this very attractive normal girl would see these and not think I was an absolute loon, but she continued to persist, so I gave in. Much to my surprise, she was crying laughing at them and asked to see the rest of them, which she also loved. I was so shell-shocked that when she tried to continue the conversation, I quickly dismissed myself and left. I started to develop a crush on her as she was the only person I had ever met who found my extremely dry humor / personality funny and took the time to talk to me. Sadly, I never really got the chance to talk to her again, and things fell off. We were in the same class, and it was in September, so we've known each other for maybe 2 weeks and have never talked to each other. One day, we had to do a group project together, and I arrived like 10 minutes late in class because I left home late because I was crying and couldn't stop. I was pretty depressed at the time. I managed to stop crying and struggled not to cry again and walk fast on my way to school. Then I arrived in class. Luckily all the students had already started to work on their project and were busy when I arrived, so they weren't staring at me. I apologized to the teacher and went sitting next to Paul. I apologized for being late and tried to avoid to look at him while we talked because my eyes were probably still a little red, but I couldn't avoid it forever and ended up looking him straight in the eye, and he noticed and asked, "Are you okay?" I said yes and faked a smile, and he said, "You sure? Tell me if you're not. You can tell me everything." I was super sad and he seemed really concerned. While we barely knew each other, and I ended up having a crush on him for several years for multiple reasons. I remember one time back in high school many years ago, this very cute girl had sort of been flirting with me from a distance for a while. One day she just came over and sat close next to me in the sofa during break. My heart skipped a little. I put my arm around her shoulders, and before heading to our separate classrooms a few minutes later, she gave me my first ever kiss and happily skipped off. I will never forget that. Probably to her an insignificant moment. To me, quite the opposite. Me. So me, this girl, and my classmate were studying for an exam and somehow we started talking about Christmas. The classmate asked, "What kind of gifts do you guys like to receive?" She said a couple of things, I said a couple of things, and at the same time we say socks. After that, she stares at me, and I notice a stupid ass smile. Like it's goofy, but it's cute. I don't know how to explain. The socks comment made it though. We had a 5-minute conversation about our courses and duties and all work related BS. But despite the fact that we were standing at the copiers and we were surrounded by people, it felt like just him and me while we talked because he had such an attentive gaze, like every word I was saying mattered. This sounds completely ridiculous, but I don't really know how else to put it tbh. The first time I met my current boyfriend, we were leaving the restaurant and he rushed to get ahead of me to open the door for me and actually stumbled and nearly tripped. I found it so endearing that I fell in love with him right then and there, and 5 years later, I've only been proven right again and again how fantastic he really is. I had a crush on someone once because their posture was impeccable and they had the most beautiful British accent. It was kinda short and sweet, and we said hello, but that was it. In high school after a concert band event, a girl I had met earlier from another school ran up to me and grabbed my hand. She led me outside, and before long had both of us rolling down the hill by the school, as if we were little kids again. When we reached the bottom and were hilariously dizzy, we laid on our backs in the grass, looked up at the stars, and tried to identify constellations together. It was a simple, goofy, spontaneous gesture from a girl I barely knew at the time, but I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. We were in high school waiting for the teacher to get up the stairs and open the door to the classroom. We had just gotten back from a field trip about half a mile down the road, so we just walked. We had been friends for a while and sat near each other in class the entirety of the year. While we were waiting, she walked up next to me and put her head on my shoulder and sat like that for a good minute. No clue why she did it, but someone in my class asked if we were a couple, and I told him that we weren't, so he said we'd look good as a couple. I asked her out like a week later, and she turned me down. It's been 3 years since I've seen her, but we are friends on Facebook. I still have a crush on her to this day. She had glasses, was tomboyish but still had a nice girly body, and basically looked like a 20-year-old librarian. All those factors together, plus she was the worst at video games I'd ever seen, but was so happy playing them, like giddy like a little kid, even though she was getting destroyed. Huge happy smile. I think it was the smile. This guy who I knew, he wrote songs and played guitar. There was one particular song he wrote, and I loved it so much. I told him once that a particular line was my favorite, and after that, every time he sang it, he'd find me in the crowd during that line, smile his cheeky smile and wink at me. He would ask, "How are you?" and "What you're doing?" A lot. I like that kind of attention. I like when people take interest in me and my life. I don't get it often. He's a real sweetheart sent from heaven. Nicest guy I know. I was told she had a crush on me. She didn't, but pathetic me was like, oh, someone likes me. Guess I should like her too. Really fell for her, actually. First time I met this guy, we were drunk at a house show, and we talked about music for a while. Thought he was cute, but I wasn't floored by him or anything. Then he put his hands on my hips and told me to dance with him. I've been infatuated ever since. Him the biggest hopeless romantic I know. During class when he sat next to me, he would ever so slightly organize the textbook and the pens to be in straight rows. Another dude had a habit of just presenting me a candy on the first hour of school every single day. If he didn't share the class with me, then he would find me during the break. Another dude had just really neat handwriting. I just got really jealous lol, and then for some reason that was also really attractive IDK. I've got tons crushes.